Hello, you're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain. This is the weekly radio show where we chat about the local arts news. We have a different guest on each week. We head over to the Rye Light Zone for a short story and or some poetry. We catch up with Twangling Jack Ford over in the Oak Shed for a weekly album review, and we play local, unsigned and or independent music. As always, you can find us on Facebook. If you search for The Art Show on Wycombe Sound, you should be able to find us. And we are repeated on Wycombe Sound on Monday nights. We're on the Wycombe Sound Listen Again, iTunes, Spotify and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please do take the time to leave a short review on your podcast platform of choice. It all helps. You can also email me here at the studio on dane.cobain@wycombesound.org.uk. That's dane.cobain@wycombesound.org.uk. So this week we have a highlight show, but before we get into that, we're going to head over to the Rye Light Zone for the latest instalment of Insomniac by myself, Dane Cobain. Week 26, day 6. She lay there for 2 days and 2 nights. Then, on the 3rd day, she woke up. Her hands were stained with blood. It had dried and caked onto them until it looked like she'd left her hands to soak in a bowl of food colouring. She was still holding onto the knife. Kate groaned and pulled herself up. Her hands were shaking and her heart was racing. She screamed when she saw the body. It looked artificial, like a mannequin with blemished grey flesh and blue extremities. It looked like a frostbite victim. And it sure as hell looked like Nana Knight. That was because it was Nana Knight. The old woman was dead again, and this time she wasn't coming back. She had a gash in her chest and her old lady entrails were hanging out like an abominable interrobang. She was definitely dead, and it was definitely from Kate's knife. And it definitely wasn't Zeb. Zeb had different eyes, and they were looking at her, laughing at her. She passed out again. Week 27, day 5. I killed my grandmother, Kate said. No, you didn't, Dr. Hansworth replied. Yes, I did, Kate insisted, and then she told him what had happened. I didn't mean to. I thought she was Zeb. And you tried to kill him? Yes. Dr. Hansworth sighed. Real or not, he said, you shouldn't stab people. I know, Kate replied. Nana Knight told me that. And then you stabbed her? Yes. Dr. Hansworth thought for a moment. I don't know, Kate, he said. I'm worried about you. Are you sleeping? No. I thought not, Hansworth replied. I think we should take another look at your medication. Kate sighed. Of course, she said. I'm sorry, Hansworth told her. There's only so much I can do, and if we want you to get better, we're going to have to step things up. And what if I say no? Kate, I'm going to be honest here, Hansworth said. You have a serious illness. I'm not crazy. I didn't say you were. He looked at her, and she was reminded of Zeb and how difficult it was to turn away from him. You need to get some sleep, Kate. I mean it. Look at you. What about me? Dr. Hansworth smashed his fist off his desk in frustration. Kate flinched and shrank back, and Hansworth hastily apologised. Kate, he said, I can't help you. This isn't a psychological condition. You mean I'm not crazy? I didn't say that, the doctor said, but sure, why not? Kate, I'm not going to lie. You have a lot of neurosis and a clear-cut case of OCD, but these things that you're seeing, the visions you're having, I think they're a byproduct of your lack of sleep. If we can fix your sleep, we'll fix your hallucinations. They're not hallucinations. Perhaps not, Dr. Hansworth said. I have no doubt that they feel very real to you, but at the same time, you must admit that there's something strange going on. Your dead grandmother came back to life and then you killed her. You don't think that's a little odd? Kate shrugged. What happened to the body? It disappeared, she admitted. 1 minute it was there and the next it had gone. And you don't think it was a hallucination? She shrugged again. I don't know what it was, she said. I don't much care for labels. Right. Dr. Hansworth paused for a moment. I'm going to follow up with that sleep specialist. Let's see if we can't speed up your appointment. Week 29, day 3. Kate lay low for a couple of weeks. She felt like a criminal, and she guessed that she technically was, but she also agreed with Dr. Hansworth. With no body, there was no crime, and that thought put her at ease, even though it also said a lot about her mental state. She still couldn't sleep, though, but that didn't surprise her. What else is new, she thought. On the plus side, she'd been given new medication, some mad concoction from the boffins that was supposed to help her sleep. It didn't, but it did stop the crazy visions, and for a little while she'd felt almost normal. On the Wednesday of week 29, she had her appointment with Dr. Jalopnik, the sleep specialist. She was a woman, which Kate hadn't been expecting, and she was young, which she hadn't been expecting either. They even looked similar, and both were strict and methodical. They warmed to each other almost immediately. How can I help? Jalopnik asked. So Kate told her the whole story, sparing the woman none of the details. The doctor looked slightly concerned when Kate got to the bit with a knife and the corporeal ghost of her grandmother, but she listened patiently and didn't pass judgment. It wasn't her job. When Kate told her what Dr. Hansworth had said about the lack of sleep affecting her ability to differentiate between fiction and reality, Dr. Jalopnik sat forward and paid close attention. It's certainly true that hallucinations are common amongst people who are suffering from sleep deprivation, Dr. Jalopnik said, and I can see from the charts that your sleeping pattern is non-existent. It's from my Fitbit, Kate said, tapping the device on her wrist. Very nice, Jalopnik said. That'll give us some data to start with. So what happens next? I'd like to keep you in overnight, the doctor said. We'll set you up in one of our pods so we can track your vitals. I'd like to get a good look at what's going on inside that brain of yours. Week 30, day 2. Dr. Jalopnik's tests were inconclusive, as Kate had always suspected they would be, and while she stayed at the facility for a second night in a row, she didn't fall asleep the entire time she was there, and the researchers seemed disappointed with the results they had. It's not my fault, Kate had tried to explain. That's why I'm here in the first place, after all. But explanation or not, the researchers were clearly disappointed, and so was Kate, although she'd tried not to get her hopes up. It would have been too much to ask for a diagnosis. She was starting to wonder if maybe she really was crazy. It certainly felt like it. Week 29 had ended in a bad way, but week 30 was even worse. Monday was okay because she got a good 4 hours, but Tuesday was a bad day from the get-go. She started vomiting in the early hours and spent half the morning with her head down the toilet bowl. Just when she thought she'd spewed up everything she'd ever swallowed, she vomited some more. By the time she'd cleaned herself up, the post had arrived. Right on top of the pile was the metaphorical red letter she'd been dreading, the final nail in the coffin. It was another illusion brought about by a lack of sleep, because in reality it had been a couple of months at best since she'd last paid rent. But in that time, she'd hardly left the house, and she certainly hadn't earned any money that she could use to pay the debt off. She rang her mother to tell her the bad news. That was the latest instalment of Insomniac for this week's entry into the Rye Zone. It is a novella by myself, Dane Cobain. You are listening to The Hart Show on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound, and this is Jazz Dillon with Patience.
You said I should be open, I could get people closer, but I keep on holding back, it gets worse. Every time I'm choked up, and when I get my hopes up, it isn't worth the trying. Looking at it closer, always seems to show up that you are a liar. Looking at it closer, always seems to show up that you are a liar.
like your book, I read it too. I studied law just like you. I got good grades, honors and A's.
That was Your Fear by Fabulous Parfait, and before that we had Patient by Jazz Dillon. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and it is time for us to catch up with some previous guests now for this week's highlight show, starting with Tracy Felds.
Well, and you mentioned the sort of the dreadful novel, which I think every writer's got one. But I wondered what are some of the differences that you've noticed yourself between writing short fiction and longer form fiction?
Yeah, I mean, I do enjoy both, but they are, I guess they're different in, certainly with a short story, you're dealing with a much smaller number of characters and possibly theme. And it's almost a bit like under a microscope, you really zoom in to the crux of a story in a short story. Whereas with a novel, obviously, you can have a much bigger cast and explore various themes and subplots. But for me, I guess, as a writer, mainly it's the investment of time. You need a lot of love and energy and time to put into a novel. You have to totally commit to it. And though you have that with a short story, it's more of an intense experience. And I think that makes it, for me, certainly more exciting and interesting. And I guess, hopefully, more for the reader too. It can be a very short but immersive experience. And also, I love the fact that with short fiction, you can experiment. And as I say, try all different types of genres that you might not in a novel, for example. I guess for me, I mean, I work by setting myself word counts, and I have the same technique for writing long or short fiction. I just have different daily targets to achieve.
Yeah, cool. And so, obviously, I want to chat to you about the naming of moths. So, what can you tell us about it? Give us the elevator pitch and a little bit of an insight into how it all came about.
Well, it's my debut short story collection, a collection of some are award-winning short stories. It's 18 stories of myths, monsters, and mothers.
Cool.
And features stories of magical realism, myths and legends reimagined. But it's also stories of the uncanny. Somebody described my writing the other day as weird and wonderful. Adult fairy tales, feminist fables. But for me, my elevator pitch really was its characters who are all undergoing pivotal moments of change and transformation. And the transformation may be actually physical as well as emotional. So, transformation of possibly from animals to human to animals. It contains all the type of stories that I particularly love reading, and I think it's certainly a collection of the best of my work, hopefully.
Yeah, cool. And where does the title come from? I mean, it makes me think of there's sort of I guess some similarities between the idea of moths and short stories, with moths being sort of as these short-lived creatures. Are your short stories the moths?
Yeah, that's actually a good selling point, actually. But it's a lot more mundane than that. It's the title story. There is a story. It's probably my most successful story. So it's the collection is named after a particular story, which is The Naming of Moths. That one, it was a regional winner for the Commonwealth Short Story Prize, which is one of the big prestigious international competitions. And I guess it's a good name for a collection because it conjures up certain images, as you're already saying. But it's actually taken from a particular story, which features the naming of moths, a group of characters who bond by naming moths, and it was a lovely story to write because I had to do quite a bit of research on moths, and some of them have the most fabulous, beautiful names.
That was a highlight of our chat with author Tracy Felds, and here we are in conversation with Sean McNulty of Auratus.
Yeah. And you mentioned again, so some of the, Paul Lynch being the classic example, but you've talked to a fair few experts, and you've got some more hopefully coming up. Who are some of the people that you've talked to and that you hope to be talking to soon?
Okay, so the interview or the written piece after Paul's was by Escor David Johnson, who was nominated for that Centre for Fiction's first novel prize. He didn't win it, but we really, really rate that novel, and his piece on prose style, entirely on prose style, it was 5,000 words, so we sent it out over a couple of emails. There was a piece that went out today from the speculative fiction writer Lavi Tidhar. Again, quite a detailed piece, 6,000 words, on various aspects of prose style, who these writers would regard as the best modern stylist. And a question I'm particularly keen to speak to them about is their pet peeves, things, stylistic issues that really irritate them. So that's been quite entertaining, getting those responses from the writers. The next one I think will be the fantasy writer, Nicola Griffith. She has also submitted an amazingly high quality piece. And the one after that will be Anna Della Subin. Her book Accidental Gods is a non-fiction book which was nominated as the best book of 2023 by various mainstream publications. And then further down the line, we've got Rob Doyle, the Irish writer Rob Doyle, whose novel Threshold I rate as one of the best written novels of the century, and a Scottish writer, Ryan O'Connor, who wrote a book called The Voids, that again I regard as one of the best written of the century. Those are the only two so far that we've contacted just because we really admire their books, not because it's connected with any prize shortlist or recent releases. And there's another writer, H. Gareth Gavin. Have you heard of him? His novel Never Was nominated for the Goldsmiths Prize. That's probably the strongest shortlist that we've looked at this year. That was very high quality. The Goldsmiths Prize is for innovative fiction, popular modernism again. Yeah. And H. Gareth Gavin didn't win that prize. Ben Myers won it with Cuddy, but that book Never Was. It's very unusual for me to even think that an author might be a genius. That thought only occurs to me maybe every 5 years or so. But I think it's possible that H. Gareth Gavin might be a genius. The quality of the writing in that novel is as good as any British publication in the last 10 years, I think. Yeah. Very, very, very special publication. So I think he's going to be doing a piece for us as well. Awesome. Yeah, those are the main ones coming up over the next month or so.
That was a highlight of our chat with Sean McNulty of Auratus, and here we are in conversation with Colourful Kat of Colourful Kat Signs.
Well, I read, I think on your website that you have a love for traditional fairground, circus, and canal art, and I wondered how that love came about.
I guess from going quite a few years back, I after I left school and I went to art college for a bit, and then I sort of went off travelling, and ended up in Southern Ireland. I lived in a bus and we travelled around all the festivals and fairs around Ireland, and I got into I had a lot of friends in horse-drawn, that lived in horse-drawn wagons, and I just loved that sort of vibrant gypsy folk art, all the scroll work and stuff, and that's kind of where that started. And then I moved back to the UK, having travelled around Southern Ireland for a few years, and I had a friend that bought a narrow boat and lived
Mm-hmm.
in Aylesbury on the Basin. And I taught myself to do the traditional canal roses, and ended up painting, like, this is my friend Jim asked me to paint a load of canal roses on his boat, so I completely decorated it with all these swags of roses.
Yeah.
And then from that, I got a job. Someone saw me doing that and asked me to redo their pub sign. And then I didn't kind of carry on sort of full-time sign writing, because I then went back to university and I studied a degree in interior design, which took 3 years. And then when I graduated, I began working in window display and visual merchandising. So that's kind of what I did then for the next 10 years or so, until I had children and started a family.
Cool. And you know, obviously with your name Colourful Kat, you use a lot of bright colors in your work. What attracts you to using them? Is it just to get people's attention with a sign, or you know, is there something about bright colors in and of themselves that you really enjoy?
Yeah, I just love bright colours. It's just cheerful, isn't it? It cheers you up. I think colour's really important. The way it affects our mood, and it's, you know, and it comes again from that kind of that circus and fairground style is always really colourful and, you know, even garish. Yeah, I love that, and it's kind of, it's a play on my sort of my colourful life, because I've done a lot of colourful things in my past.
That was a highlight from our chat with Kat from Colourful Kat Designs, and now we're going to be joined in conversation by previous guest author Pae Veo.
And you mentioned this a little bit, but what's some of the feedback you've had about your work?
I've been generally positive. What's funny about Searching for Marilyn Monroe is what I got it reviewed for this magazine. I can't even remember the name of the magazine, but what I always found kind of funny is the one criticism they had was due to a story titled 53, which I can't remember what they said. There something that it was predictable, or it was one that they just didn't really like in the collection. But as far as the feedback I've gotten from the collection by everyone that's read it, that is every single one of the everyone's that I've responded. So in getting feedback, it's you know, you got to take it all with a grain of salt, even the positive and the negative. It's such a mix that on what you just never know what it's all going to be based on people's experiences with what they've read, where they're coming from, and so it's hard to analyze any kind of feedback in any kind of accuracy that can be applied to what one may want to write later on.
That was a highlight of our chat with author Pae Veo. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and this is Chameleon with What Are We Waiting For?
Name Is that blood on your shirt? Screams from the crowd as you wrestle the demon to the dirt. Outside the cold light shines so clear. Same rules they give in the jungle don't apply here. Sing hallelujah in a hushed tone, dancing in the aisle on the last train home. Hold hands with a stranger, saving dine alone. What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for?
That was Chameleon with What Are We Waiting For? You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain. And now we are going to have another bit of our highlights for our highlight show. And this is a highlight of our chat with author and musician, JD Estrada.
I have been playing guitar since I was 16, 17. I took 2 classes and stopped taking classes because classes and I, when it comes to music, do not get along. Everything that I've ever played, recorded, and shared, I actually have a playlist on YouTube with about 30 tracks and a couple of covers. It's me and a guitar. It's not the best audio quality. I don't have the best voice, but it is very me. And if I'm ever going to do something else with that, who knows? Right now, it's absolutely purely for pleasure.
Yeah. Cool. And how does songwriting compare to writing fiction and writing books?
Writing in general, it varies from project to project, and from song to song, what sparks an idea is different. Maybe you have a couple of chords that make sense, and you have one lyric, and then every time that you play it, something pen to paper. Sometimes I have the lyrics completely fleshed out, and then I'm like, how am I going to put music to this? And that's a much more difficult process for me. Sometimes I have a melody, but it's more drum or bass driven, and I'm screwed because I only play guitar. I've dabbled with piano, but when I say dabbled, I'm being generous with that word. It's not like I can carry a tune. I can play a whole song on guitar, but I can't play a fraction of a song in pretty much any other instrument.
That was a highlight of our chat with author and musician JD Estrada, and here we are in conversation with Angela Hart.
Cool. So, and you've can you tell us a little bit about your dissertation? Because I know you told me a little bit on Instagram, but can you share that with the folks at home?
Yes, I've been working on my PhD in communications. I started my program in 2016, and yes, we're in 2024 now. So I started this a while ago. So clearly there's something about the romance genre fandom I have dedicated a lot of my time to. It spoke to me, and the fact that I'm still working on it tells you how much it means to me. So I was really invested in trying to find an overlap with romance genre and academia, and it's a very, very small sliver. The last fandom study that was done was Janice Radway in 1985. So this is a long time ago, pre-digital age. So I'm trying to explore the romance genre fandom and how they utilize online platforms, what this allows them to do, how they combat and negate the stigmatization. So there's so much to kind of break apart. It's been a very long process, but hopefully the end result will make it all worth it.
Awesome, cool. And obviously we've chatted a lot about your passions when it comes to reading, but you're also a writer as well. So what can you tell us about your writing?
So at the moment I have again, I love my romance novels. I wrote a little romance novella for the Read Me Romance podcast. It was created by Alexa Riley and Tessa Bailey. And right now, I think Tessa Bailey has stepped back a little bit. So it's just the writing duo for Alexa Riley. So I currently actually have another novella due for them in the next month and a half. So I got to get my little writing button to gear and get some more words on the page because they need the This is one of those, you can't let the deadline go by you because at this point it's the podcast and someone needs to narrate it. So I can't wait for that whooshing sound of the deadline with the ongoing joke in the writing community. Like, nope, I have a hard and fast deadline. So I got to get my 10,000 words on the page for my novella, and hopefully people will listen to it and enjoy it. So that's the next project coming out.
That was a highlight of our chat with Angela Hart, a romance author, and now here is part of our chat with the team from Wycombe Rye parkrun. But I wondered, could you outline sort of the different volunteer roles that you guys that any parkrun, I suppose, has available?
Yeah, I can kick us off. So there's a lot of roles, and I guess any could be a first one. It just depends what you're comfortable with. So we have, I guess, the key roles we have are the marshals. They are the eyes and ears of the run directors. So they're there to support the runners and walkers as they go through the course. But they can also report back any incidents have happened along the way. But they're mostly to encourage the runners to kind of and walkers to make their way through the course. We also have the barcode scanners, and they will be at the end of the course scanning you through to get your time. We'll also have, talking of time, timekeepers. Their role is to time each runner coming through, and what you all need for that is a mobile phone. We also have I missed
tokens, people with tokens.
Yeah, tokens. So we have finished tokens, so the people who will give out the finished tokens, and we also have the finished token support who will give the token to the finished token person to hand them out. We also have actually a volunteer coordinator, and this person their job is to encourage people to volunteer for the following weeks. And also we have people who are part of the core team, so they're like the run directors. They are those who are in charge on the day that parkrun is. And we also have a funnel manager who helps keep the finished funnel flowing. And I hope I haven't missed anyone, any roles.
Can't think of any others. No, I mean, people are a bit scared of some of the roles. I mean, timekeeping is one they're all very scared of. But if I was doing, I'd be more scared of writing a report in case I wrote something very terrible people didn't like, But there's nothing that's difficult to do, because when you turn up on the day, if you've never done it before, you'll get a briefing on what to do, you'll get a demo how to time or whatever you want. And if you're out on the course marshalling, you'll get a lanyard with the instant response instructions on it and where to stand. We call them Ben yards, but for a particular reason, because there's a guy, one of our run directors called Ben, is on the pictures of all of them with his arm pointing in the right direction, so you know where to go. So it's all very sort of easy to do. And I think I personally enjoy the volunteering as much as the running. It's good standing out there, clapping your hands, shouting at people. And you get, on Saturday I was there, 476 people passed by. The number of people that shouted, "Hello, Bob, how you doing?" I don't know half their names, but I've seen them running around parkrun, but they know who I am. And it's the same with people like Taz and all the other run directors. We're known even if we don't know who they are.
That was a highlight of our chat with the team from Wycombe Rye parkrun, and here we are, a highlight of our chat with Chris Fitzmaurice.
For sure. And so how does writing poetry differ from writing, say, sort of science fiction?
You can write science fiction poetry, but poetry, I suppose, is an episode, isn't it? It's like a little, it's just a little moment. I suppose an analogy could be Fleetwood Mac. There's a song called Dragonfly, and it's a couple of minutes long, but it's just about a dragonfly arriving and disappearing, and it's that kind of ephemeral idea. I suppose science fiction often is these sweeping worlds. You have to do world building, you have to create the characters, you have to make them, allow the reader to suspend disbelief, to suspend their disbelief, so that they can actually believe in the world, and they can start to see the ideas that you're presenting and try to connect into their own lives, and the symbolism has to come through in a certain way. Poetry, you have to do that in a few lines, potentially, unless it's an epic poem. Of course, epic poetry is another thing altogether, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned there sort of getting the audiences to suspend their disbelief. Do you think, going back to the podcast, maybe some of the things you do with the sound design helps you to do that, or is maybe a shortcut to do that in terms of sort of the things that the person is hearing as they hear the story?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's one of the draws of it, because one of the things I enjoyed about writing films was I'd imagined the sounds and the sounds go beyond what you see on the screen, don't they? And so if you think about the things that go beyond the screen, then you're creating a more immersive world, and you're building up the idea that there is a world beyond this, imaginary shot. And so sound design definitely allows you to. It adds. It's almost like painting, isn't it? With sound, it adds details, and you can see maybe even contradictions. If you're a really sophisticated writer, then you could probably create an unreliable protagonist, and you could use a sound design to contradict what you're writing, and you can make you can. There's all kinds of things that great writers can do. Could be there's all kinds of potential with that. I'm just an amateur writer, but there's all kinds of potential.
That was a highlight of our chat with author Chris Fitzmaurice. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and this is Kick Goff with Simple Wayside.
Exactly what's upon the brain. I used to leave my mark on walls just to find my way again. Don't leave me by the wayside, captured by the firelight, so I can look away. I never saw it in your eyes, the love that fades away like you search for better days. Simple things and now simple loves don't belong here anyway. I think I'll keep it basic though, as they rain on my parade. Don't leave it by the wayside, captured by the firelight, so I can look away. I never saw you in your eyes, the love that fades away like you search for better days. Simple words, now they need simple hearts, just a whisper and they break. I think I'll keep myself apart and my heart out of harm's way. Don't leave me by the wayside, captured by the firelight, so I can look away. I never saw it in your eyes, the love that fades away like you search for better days.
Take me
left a hole deep inside, but you don't really care anymore. And now I miss you more when everything is harder to see and believe in. Oh, wishing you'd turn around, pick me up when I'm feeling down, but that's just blown away with the wind. Oh, da 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 da. So take in every word of this song. My love is still strong, and when you're gone, oh, remember all those times and 13 reasons why our love will go on forevermore. But you still don't care anymore. Oh, our love will go on forevermore. But you still don't care
That was Don't Care Anymore by Tom Bradley Jr. and before that we had Simple Wayside by Kit Goff. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. I'm your host Dane Cobain, and it is time for us to be joined by Twangly and Jack Ford over in the Oak Shed for this week's album review.
Tim Buckley, a CD box set of 8 of his albums. There was a time when singer-songwriters were the big thing, but I was not a fan. I liked rock groups. I liked electric guitars playing riffs and solos. Singer-songwriters were for girls in pink bedrooms, listening to James Taylor, Cat Stevens, or even Elton John. I mistakenly lumped Tim Buckley in with the singer-songwriters. He was always pictured with an acoustic guitar, and he appeared in an episode of The Monkees, looking like a singer-songwriter. But I found a CD with his first 2 albums either in a charity shop or a library sale. The early Tim Buckley albums are West Coast pop rock. He wrote all the songs, but they are performed by a band, not dissimilar to the way Jefferson Airplane sounded at the time. There are some really good catchy pop songs, and even a lengthy suite made up of different disparate parts. So in this 8 CD box set, I think I do prefer the first 2 albums. The 3rd and 4th albums are good, but much the same kind of songs, only a bit jazzier. Then we get Star Sailor, the album that he's probably most famous for. It has the great songs like Songs for the Siren, his best known and most covered song. But it also has some pieces that are a bit more experimental. Star Sailor is considered to be his masterpiece, but on his next album Lorca he got even more experimental. His music around this time tended to be more stripped down, with congas, electric piano and jazzy electric lead guitar. On Lorca there are moments when the backing track sounds like a horror film soundtrack. There are moments where the electric piano sounds like it came off a Miles Davis 1970s session. And there are moments of intense strumming and wailing that could be acoustic Led Zeppelin. The last of the studio albums attempts to return to a more commercial sound, only instead of the 60s West Coast psychedelic sound of the early albums, this is now a 70s AOR funky rock and roll sound, something like the Doobie Brothers. There are some strong songs but nothing groundbreaking. The final CD in the box is Unfinished Tracks. Overall, it is excellent value and it entertained me during a lot of driving and cycling. Tim Buckley was quite well known during his lifetime, but was never very successful. He is one of these acts whose stature has probably risen since he died. And he also is known for being Jeff Buckley's father. Tim Buckley, an 8 CD box set.
Big thank you to Twangling Jack Ford for this week's album review. Thank you to this week's guest. Thank you to everyone whose music I've shared. As always, you can reach out to me here at the studio by dropping me an email on dane.cobain@wycombsound.org.uk. That's dane.cobain@wycombsound.org.uk. And I'm particularly keen to hear from poets, performers, musicians, people with MP3s to share local arts news. Don't hesitate to get in touch. You can also find us on Facebook. If you search for The Art Show on Wycombe Sound, you should be able to find us. And we are repeated on Wycombe Sound on Monday nights. We're on the Wycombe Sound Listen Again, iTunes, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. So I'm going to leave you with one last song. This is Without My Addiction with Olanzapine. I'll catch you next week.